You just tuned in with Defiance the Dawn, live on the chopping block. Prepare to level the game with the knowledge of street science. Turn your speakers up and let's get into it.
Oh, that hurts so good, man. That's the shit to remember when you forget everything else.
Good morning, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of The Chopping Block. I am so glad that everyone has the chance to tune in. This is Defiance the Dawn, your host, Corey Austin. I'm sure you know me as both. I'm glad that y'all been following the podcast and giving me really good feedback. Last week, I had a great episode. We had a great chop with Sonia Barrett, my mom, and it really just was an enlightening episode that a lot of people really just was able to feel the energy that both of us were able to kick back and forth. So I really liked it. And I want to be able to do some more episodes in the future where I bring people on that have expertise and they specialize in different fields. And they can give a lot more enlightenment or even awareness to some of the subject matter that I like to cover, where you're not only just hearing it from my point of view or what I have to say, but you're also able to hear it from experts that have studied in those fields and not just going about what I've studied, but other people that can give more of a well-rounded perspective. So it's always real good. So what do we got going on right now? I know that there's always a lot of stuff to cover. There's always something going on, and that's kind of the revolving theme, is to keep something going on and keep your mind focused on what someone wants to put the mind focused on. So you got to make sure that you're not getting too swayed and too distracted, but there are a few things that definitely pique your interest and catch your attention. I was on, I think, Instagram earlier this morning, and I was just scrolling through, checking out some stuff as I usually do, and I saw that there was a meme that was going around, and it was quite interesting. It was talking about the whole vaccination thing, and they were actually talking about there's a mandatory vaccination, a bill that's being passed or worked on to go enforce mandatory vaccinations without exemptions on all children and even adults and, just pretty much every American citizen. And I found it, very interesting because I definitely have done my research on the whole vaccination thing. And I'm an anti-vaxxer. If that's not you, so be it, but that's where my stance is. I do not go ahead, conform, and comply with the vaccinations. If you do, that's fine. There's nothing that I have to say against someone that chooses to do that. I just say do your research so that you can make the best decisions for your family possible. And that's what it's important at the end of the day. But I thought what was very interesting about this is that there were so many people sharing and liking this post, where I wanted to do my due diligence to make sure the validity of what was actually being said, because that is definitely Gestapo, Orwellian type of move right there, where you look at a level of mandatory vaccination. Whether you're for it or against it, that's besides the case. To force or impede will upon people onto a society, that definitely goes against, the free will and the free enterprise of what this very source of country was built around, what the substance of it is supposed to be. Because at the end of the day, today could be vaccinations. Tomorrow it can be anything else that you hold dear. Think about if it was forced religious belief, or if it was, um, forced racial ethnic cleansing. Forced forced gender mandating. Where you can only subscribe to a specific gender or whatever it is. Whenever there's a forced way of being, that's never a good thing. So you have to be able to look at it from both sides. But I did do my due diligence on it, and I didn't see anything that was speaking out against or speaking up for a mandatory vaccination on everyone. But I did see that they're trying to pass a bill, or they actually did approve a bill that goes against the philosophical excuse that you could use to not get vaccinated. So I thought that that was already passed. But maybe it was just passed on a state level. And I think now that they actually passed it on a federal level where you have to have, you can't have a philosophical reason for not going ahead and vaccinating your children. I think you have to have all mandatory shots before the child enters the sixth grade. So now that's the bill that they're actually working on, and Rand Paul, I think he was speaking against it with the GOP, which they are for it and they're trying to push it. Now this whole thing is very interesting on how it's coming out now. Reason being is that what do we have going on that's really creating this interest around the whole vaccination thing. And there's always of interest with for vaccinations and mandatory for students and kids, and I think you can't even get your kids into school without vaccinations right now. There is still a way around it. If you're interested, actually, you can email me at Corey at imperialmediadesign.com and I could tell you more about that. But either way, there's always been a conflict of that. And what's going on right now, where you see, hey, there's kind of an episode that's taking place, and they're talking about this new measles outbreak. Well, now that there's the measles outbreak, now almost within the last week, they're trying to push for new vaccination bills, which is very interesting when I start looking at it with this whole thing that's kind of happens with a virus coming out. Now, something that we've been wanting to pass, a bill that we wanted to go ahead and get past Congress, now it's a very strategic time to be able to push it. And this isn't the first time actually that we see something like this. And what we end up having, or what we end up having often here, especially in America, people fall asleep easy. They often fall into episodes of amnesia. But I also take in consideration not just one amnesia happens to a lot of the American public, but two, I also take in consideration that information often gets suppressed for, multiple reasons. But they actually had back in 2010 where there's a company called Baxter International. And Baxter International, they're an Illinois-based pharmaceutical company. And they were caught back in 2010 actually sending live avian flu viruses along with vaccinations to around 18 different countries. Now, that's crazy. Why would they send a virus and then also send the vaccination to multiple countries out there? Now, they did their due diligence when they were actually caught. There was research and investigation that was brought up against them. And they found that there's no way that Baxter International could have done this by accident because they adhere to a biolevel safety 3, which this is a set of protocols that prevent them from doing any cross contamination of materials. So this was done maliciously and on purpose. They mixed two different substances. It was the H5N1 and an H3N2, which was a human form with the standard flu vaccine inside of the material. So the tainted vaccines were received in labs by a number of Eastern European countries. So some wonder if the contamination was part of a deliberate attempt to start a pandemic. So when we see, and back and now moving forward, when we see there's an outbreak with measles, and now we have certain bills that are being looked at to be passed, is very interesting how those two get kind of strung together. This wouldn't be the first time, and you have to look at it a little deeper because we only hear about the outbreak, the pandemic. We hear the media when they start going ahead and bringing some of these episodes to light. We don't see the intricacies of what manifested behind the scenes. It's like we're only looking from one side of the curtain. And I have evidence of, them covering this story. I'm actually going to put that on my Instagram. So if you go to my IGTV on my Instagram, Defiance the One, then you'll be able to see actually a snippet that I'm going to upload for you guys to check out the story. It's maybe about, a minute and a half, 2 minutes long. But it gives a detail on how this was done. And this was almost 10 years ago, a decade ago. These people are very patient, and there's no telling what gets manifested and what gets brought forward. So we want to be very aware of how we proceed and how we choose to engage with these different things that we hear. You can't rely only on one source of information to be the sole the sole library of your knowledge. You definitely want to make sure that you're checking out from a lot of different levels. There's actually people that are interested in knowing more about the vaccinations. There's actually a good site that's called vaccines.procon.org. And on that website, you're able to see a lot of different sides to both parts of the argument. People that are for it and people that are against it. And I say it like this. If you want to be well versed in anything, it's best to know all you can about it from both sides. Whether you're for something or you're against something, you definitely want to know why the other side thinks what they think. So that way you can make a better and more comprehensive decision about what you choose to do. And so those are the important factors that you definitely want to keep in mind. Because I tell you, man, there's no depths that I find that people won't go to when there's a level of money involved. Almost everyone could be bought. It's just about matching that price. And anyone can be sacrificed if they're on the other end of who's being bought. So when we think about these trusted corporations, when we think about this trusted government agencies or anything that we put all of our faith in, whether it's educational institutions, religious institutions, whatever we want to do, criminal justice, and think about at the end of the day, these are all ran by people, human beings. Human beings are flawed by nature. Human beings often have a hidden agenda, things that they want, and they end up practicing a tribalism where they associate and seek out others that have that common interest. You remember when you were young and back in high school or college days, when immediately, especially if you were a weed smoker, you smoked bud, and what did you, first thing you did? Bud smokers, they say that they have almost this telekinesis. When you see another one, you automatically make eye contact and it's a nod. It's just like, yeah, okay, you blow trees too. All right, so do I. So it's that kind of energy that both of y'all kind of get it without even having to say anything. And those people, now you kind of form a pact between that, and people now, kind of circle in, okay, these are going to be the bud smokers or whatever your clique was. This is the same way when we get into any industry. People become cliquish among those that have similar agendas, similar means to an end. And we have to remember that. Um, People take oaths to be in certain positions, but that doesn't make them above their own hypocrisy. They will practice hypocrisy because they're not above it. So you have to be able to keep that in mind when you're looking at people and so on and so on. But they got other stuff going on, and it's very interesting, speaking of people and how they function and what their agendas are. We have a man that's been publicized right now all across the media that has his own agenda, and that's been R. Kelly. And it's just been going on and on and on, from the documentary to over this. And, if R. Kelly had done the stuff recently to that little girl, if all these allegations, if this is what's happening, then yeah, he deserves everything that they want to throw at him. If that's what he was doing, that's just what it is. There's no letting up off of that. That's where, crime and punishment comes in. He has to face the law for any type of wrongdoings, manipulation, coercion that might have been done against that. There's no doubt about it. It's just very interesting the time and day that is being chose to really look into some of these factors. And I say that when we look at the people that are being brought to the spotlight right now. We have R. Kelly. Bill Cosby, prior to R. Kelly, was socially lynched. R. Kelly being socially lynched. And they're even going after, the dead carcass of Michael Jackson, one of the best musicians of all time. Yeah, he had questionable antics. Yeah, we didn't fully understand him. Michael Jackson was also acquitted. And Michael Jackson has many people speaking on his behalf, but they're ready to go ahead and parade that man's legacy through the dirt with the new documentary that they had done about him in a very disturbing way, because it's almost like an attack that is helping to cause the line of division. And that's what they're doing right now, is creating that division amongst the populace. So society is looking at these two sides, and they're criminalizing how a black male may look in the light. Popular black males look in the light. You got Bill Cosby, you got R. Kelly, you got Michael Jackson. They're dragging his name through the mud. They were trying to take in Chris Brown and Jamie Foxx. They barely missed a bullet on getting away. And it's just interesting. I think the only white males that have been taken in recently were, I don't know, maybe I think there was some photos of a news article of Harvey Weinstein in handcuffs, but he still hasn't been convicted, with numerous allegations against him. The whole Me Too movement pretty much had started because of his allegations, and he was walking around free. He was walking around free, while Bill Cosby, with lesser crime, but still a very crucial crime, was getting convicted. You have Harvey Weinstein that's free, Bob Weinstein, Brett Ratner, Woody Allen, Roman Polanski, James Toback, Richard Dreyfuss, Jeffrey Tabor, Andy Dick, Louis C.K., Oliver Stone, Dustin Hoffman, Jeremy Piven. We could keep going. Hamilton Fish, Jan Wenner, David Blaine, Terry Richardson. I mean, all these guys that have been accused of sexual misconduct that are completely free. White males that have not been convicted at all of any sexual assault, sexual crime, even though the same accusations, the same level of proof, the same people speaking out against them are right there, and it's being overlooked. It's crazy. And this is what we have to be able to watch, because the media, even social media, things that we see, it's very divisive in the way that knowledge and information is used to distract and divide. But it doesn't mean that the division isn't real. The topics aren't real. That doesn't mean that. These are things that we have to go ahead and bring a level of equality from both sides. If instead of seeing a division and ignoring a level of injustice, both sides have to go ahead and call out where things aren't fitting, where things aren't coming together, because it's almost like a pattern. And in order for that pattern to have an equal level all the way across, it has to be able to sew together in equality. And that's not what we're seeing. We're not seeing that line of division is becoming wider, because one side doesn't want to call out what is apparent and what is blatant. And so when we see discriminatory media frenzy and discriminatory acts in our social in our criminal justice system, those things have to be brought to light. Yeah, everyone that's doing this, that has gone ahead and caused sexual misconduct against women that have truly been violated, and they didn't consent to these multiple acts, then yeah, we need to go ahead and convict those that impose those acts against them. You think about it. If you have a mother, daughter, aunt, niece, whoever you want to think about this. But at the same time, let's not only convict people based on looking one way that fit a profile that America has painted for us, an identity. This has been the problem with America for hundreds of years, is taking a black male and kind of showboating them in front of the American populace, lynching them in front as a pastime activity, as entertainment. This is a social lynching. Like, look at what they do. Well, why don't we point the finger and say, let's not judge them by the color of their skin. Let's judge them by the content of their character. And the character, if they've all been charged with sexual misconduct, then let's see them as sexual deviants of society. Where, we have the Pope out there and the Catholic Church, entire Vatican up and down, that have been exposed multiple times, especially in the last few years, for sexual misconduct against children. Multiple lewd acts with child porn, and them coming out and saying this has been going on. There's no black popes. Not in the recent day and age of what people can remember today. So it's definitely looking at how we deal with this on a social construct where it's larger than just looking at an R. Kelly, whether he did it or he didn't, or he's crying and all that. All that's the distraction. It's the division where you have a disparity between what's looked at and charged with justice and how equality meets that justice. Is there true equality in a justice system that is supposed to charge all that convict a crime that's a nefarious act? And that's what we want to be able to look at. But some of the other stuff I wanted to be able to cover today is those of you, listening in and going ahead and thinking about, man, how do we protect ourselves? How do we go ahead and watch for these things? This stuff, we call it a family science. This is a science that has to start within the family. And a lot of times when you have to start a science within the family, you have to start with building up an empire from a foundation and building up your own, building up everything from education in the home, banking in the home, spirituality in the home, understanding social issues. Start that within the home. How to analyze it, how to critically think, how to view things. Start shaping perspectives. This family science is how you go ahead and you build from the ground up. And a lot of times it's difficult for us to be able, as fathers or mothers, parents, to teach our kids really what they need to learn. We send them to school and we expect them to be able to get the things that are, the essentials, the reading, the writing, the arithmetic, and a little bit of history. I scratched the history part. Fuck that. Teach it yourself. But at the same time, those are the basics. But you have to be able to not so much just want to meet or have the school system meet your expectations, because they are there to go ahead and teach what the establishment needs. The establishment needs trained workers that practice a certain ideology, that doesn't question authority, and then comply to be able to increase the economic base of the American company. That's what they need. They're training employees. If you want something more for your child it is not up to the school system to place that upon them. That is up to you during your time of what you choose to implement and how you choose to implement it. Yes, there is a lot more difficulty today because most parents have to work, and there's not as many parents that are able to be within the home within the child. But that part-time education where you can fulfill and balance what they're learning at school and what you can offer is very essential and very crucial. That's family science. And some of the ways that you can start building into giving yourself more time into being able to place yourself in the home is by building a foundation of something that you truly want to do, something that you can truly own, a business that you can show, practice, and teach your kids how they can work and do something on their own too. Something that you can pass down. You can't pass down your job, but you might be able to pass down a family business. But that family science has to start within the home, and it has to start with self. And a lot of times I find, people end up getting so burnt out by having to try to pay the bills, keep the lights on, working, commuting, going back and forth, and then getting home. By the time you engage with your children, they're not always getting the best part of you, because the best part of you was in the morning between 8 to 3, and that part was given to somebody else at a job. And now by the time you come home and you've been on the freeway and you're stressed out and you don't have any more to give, so then it's just burning you out, and it's a wear and tear, and especially if it's mundane and it's routine. So a lot of us has been there. But where you have to go ahead and dig is trying to find that deep burning desire for something that you yearn for, something that you want. It was written in a great way in the book that I read a long time ago by Napoleon Hill, called Think and Grow Rich. And it speaks about that burning desire, that feeling that you are going to do whatever it takes. And that's where the hustle starts, with a lot of the hard work. Because not everyone's built for it. Not everyone's built for it. But it's up to you to find out what you're built for. And finding out how to get to that level. Because it becomes a very lonely road when you're trying to change the dynamic of what's been shaped for you. When you're trying to apply this family science within your home, sometimes it can be a difficult road, because you have to have a level of motivation. And you're going to find a lot of people around you aren't going to be in support of what you're trying to do. Mainly because that doesn't fit the program that they've subscribed to. The program they subscribe to usually tells them to follow the status quo that they've picked up from the time that they were in school to the time they're adults. The school system has already laid out how they should operate, and they operate based on the programming that they've picked up and they've practiced for most of their life. So when you try to break out that program, it's almost like people start short-circuiting around you, because you're a glitch in the matrix. It's almost like a flaw in the code, because the code isn't supposed to go that way. So what you'll hear are things that people will bring to your attention that will consist of doubt, and it will consist of negativity. People won't believe that you can really do what you're trying to do. And it's almost the same thing that was practiced in the Nixon administration when they were moving past counterintelligence against a lot of the black liberators and the black civil rights movement, they moved into benign and neglect. Means that we're not going to do anything against you, but we're not going to do anything for you. And that's kind of what happens in your initial environment when you start trying to break out on things on your own. You may even get this from your own spouse, your best friend, people that have known you your whole life. You may find that you expected support from certain people, and when you don't get it, it's going to make you feel like you should give up or you shouldn't push forward. And that's farthest from the truth. Usually, you're on the right path and on the right road. That benign neglect, it's automatically a code that they default to. This is what people default to doing when they don't understand how to go ahead and engage with you. They weren't built any other way. This is the way that they're wired. They're wired to be that way. But when you know what you're doing is true, when you know that it's authentic, when it comes from the very pits of your stomach, from your soul, that's organic. That's real. That's something that was cut from the soil. And you have to grow that thing from the ground up, all on your own. There's no other way. But when you get to the point, when you start growing these things, you start changing things around you. Because people oftentimes will have preconceived notions of what you can do and what you can't do based on who you are and what they have known you to be. People have already programmed themselves to understand you in a certain light, in a certain dynamic. Think about all the people you know, all your best friends, all the people you grew up with. You know those people. You know who they are. So when you speak to them, it's not like something brand new. Most of the time, the people that you meet and you go on to kick it with, they're going to be the same type of person you're going to have the same expectations of day in, day out. How many Will Smiths do you know? How many Jamie Foxxes? How many people do you know on that level? We don't know people like that when we're coming up because those people are one in a lifetime. Out of millions of people, you get these small tickets of people that break through the matrix. They get out. They try to go ahead and be greater than their environment. It's not, where these people come from. If we look at LeBron, there's not 1,000 LeBrons. There's 1,000 people that play basketball, and there's probably, 100 of them that were great. But there was going to be only one that was going to be him to break through and make it to the level of the NBA that he did. So the road to success is a lonely one. It's a very solo path until you start making enough headway that you break through to the other side. And that's when you start getting into the circles of people that notice you and acknowledge your potential. But on the bottom side of it, those aren't people that are used to seeing what it takes to get far, what it takes to get ahead. So all they see is somebody that's going against the grain, doing things different, making oddball moves, doesn't make sense. They're going to see somebody that doesn't fit the program. So how are they going to support what doesn't make sense? It doesn't make sense to them because they've never seen it. They've never done it. It's not real to them. You're not doing something that they can go ahead and quantify. So you have to know that it solely falls on what you're doing. Because at the end of the day, no one knows what you can do. It's you that needs to get out your own way. And you need to not allow your past to enslave you. See, a lot of people end up having their own preconceived connotations about themselves. And those preconceived connotations start to become an encumbrance. Encumbrance is a weight that weighs you down. Because all the things that you think or you've been told from your environment about yourself, you start to believe it. You believe it's true. It's like shackles, these chains that you allow to limit what you actually can do. And those things you have to learn to be able to let it go. You have an internal scale, a scale that sits inside you that you leverage and you weigh against yourself, your doubts and your potential. Your mind's constantly weighing that back and forth. And what it does is, when you have those doubts that outweigh your potential, it limits the ability for your visions to actually manifest. That goal that you dream about isn't going to happen without taking action. And you can't take action if you're being weighed down by too much. You have to lighten your load. You have to lighten your load by letting go. Letting go of the drama, letting go of the people, letting go of the environment, letting go of the past, letting go of everything that's negative that pulls and weighs you down. Because you cannot move forward with all that weight. It's too much. But it isn't always easy to do that. Sometimes our surroundings are too close. We might be in sour relationships. It might be a husband, a wife, a girlfriend, a boyfriend, a mother, a father, a brother, a sister. These things you have to be able to analyze and not so much point the finger at them, because it's not their fault, but what are you doing to create people to respond this way to you? You can't change anyone, but you can change your situation and you can change your circumstance. That's why it's so important to find a drive that keeps you determined within your own grind. If you have a partner not 100% in your corner, you'll have to learn to shake that off. Once you start going ahead and making real moves and things start coming together, you'll be really surprised about who rides for you. This is what you have to do. You have to be able to release them shackles. Let them go. Lighten your load. Allow your mind to flourish. Allow your mind to get active. Allow your mind to take action. That doesn't mean jumping into business blindly. That's not always the best way. You want to be able to become diverse and understand, do your due diligence, a lot of research. Understand what you're jumping into, but don't let all that research procrastinate you. You want to be able to move smart and strategically, but you still want to have a level of urgency. Still want to move like there's an emergency. You still want to go ahead and have that I'm going to jump into it attitude. And that's the type of fire that you want to feel. You know, the more you know about what you are, who you are, the better you become at being able to own those things and being able to accomplish things. So, those are things you want to remember, keep in mind. How you're able to go ahead and look at yourself and make your business a reflection of who you are, the best parts of yourself. That's how you develop a brand that separates from you, but is a reflection of you. What makes you different? What makes you unique? What makes you something that people see that's custom? You can never assume that you're the first to do something, but you are always going to be the first of who you are to do it. You know, because it always will be unique. You'll never be the first to do something, but there'll never be someone like you that's ever done it. Because no two people are ever the same. No two people, even twins, aren't completely identical. Everyone has a unique way of thinking. Everyone's going to have a unique approach because you have never been here before. So this has never been done by you. It's been done by others, but not by you. So there's always a uniqueness that can be brought to the table. Well, that's it for today. I hope that y'all got the earful. I'm over here just trying to drop these jewels, feed y'all when I can, and let y'all digest that food for thought. That was it one time. Go ahead and check out Defiance the One. That's where you can go ahead and get multiple different kinds of information throughout the day on my Instagram. And then you can also keep an eye out for the Go Concentrate one. We're coming real close with getting that app ready. You guys are going to have some digital information that you could go ahead and soak up a lot of game with. And then on top of that, for all my musicians out there, people that are looking to be musicpreneurs, music entrepreneurs, go ahead and get my book, Rap Athlete. I wrote with marketing techniques that are specific to what you need to do to get your game out there, get your name out there, start branding yourself as a business, not just an artist, but how you could branch out with your music. So the Rap Athlete, it has very strategic ways for you to be able to launch a career. It's a great book, packed with information, and it's only a very tiny handbook to be able to do it. It's actually ebook, but it could be as small as a handbook. Go check that out. Go to imperialmediadesign.com. You could also get it at imperialhustle.com. As soon as it pops up, sign up, and it's a free book. You'll be able to get straight to you. Also, the book has about over 100 different industry contacts in it that you can get right away that are industry veterans looking for independent musicians to send their music and being able to work with. So it's a great book. That's the advanced version, and that's only $9.99, $10 for that book. And then there's a free version. It doesn't have the industry veterans and the industry executives, but you can still get a packed bunch of information in there. So I hope that y'all like it. Check it out, and I'll talk to y'all soon. Peace.